In this video, we're going to cover handling resignations. So how does an assembly handle a resignation, and how does one resign? In parliamentary law, a resignation is actually a motion. It's a motion known as a request to be excused from a duty. So when should someone make such a request? Robert's Rules of Order has this to say on the matter. If a member who has accepted an office, committee assignment, or other duty finds that he is unable to perform it, he should submit his resignation. So, how does a member submit a resignation? Robert's Rules of Order says, a resignation is submitted in writing, addressed to the secretary or appointing power. Alternatively, it may be submitted during a meeting, either orally or in writing. So, a resignation, carefully crafted, in your own words, of course, is, as we mentioned earlier, a request to be excused from a duty, which may be either accepted or rejected. Now, if the appointing power is an individual, such as the president, CEO, or executive director, then that individual has the authority to accept or reject the resignation. For example, let's say the appointing power is the president. That means the president is solely responsible for appointing the position without requiring any further approval from anyone else. In such a case, the president is also the individual responsible for handling the resignation and can accept it, thereby excusing the individual from that particular responsibility. The president could then appoint another individual to the position. Robert's Rules of Order has the following to say on the matter. The power to appoint or elect persons to any office or board carries with it the power to accept their resignations, and also the power to fill any vacancy occurring in it, unless the bylaws expressly provide otherwise. So, just to be clear, the example we just saw where the president accepted the resignation, that only applies in cases where the president is the one who appoints that particular position. But what if the board or a committee or the General Assembly itself elects the position? Does that change anything? Well, yes, it does. In that case, the resignation, which is a request to be excused from a duty, is actually a motion, which the applicable body may accept or reject. And just like any other motion, its consideration must take place inside a meeting, requiring a majority vote to accept the resignation. And how is this done? Well, Robert's Rules of Order has this to say on the subject. The chair, on reading or announcing the resignation, can assume a motion that the resignation be accepted. So how does that work in a meeting? Let's take a look. The chair would say, the treasurer has submitted her resignation, which reads as follows. The chair would then read the resignation, unless it has been distributed to the members, in which case the chair would skip the reading of the resignation, unless any member demanded that it be read. Then the chair would say, the question is now on the adoption of the motion that the resignation shall be accepted. Is there any debate? Members then have the opportunity to debate the matter, and when there is no further debate, the chair puts the motion to a vote by first repeating the motion and then saying, those in favor of accepting the resignation say aye. Those opposed say no. After the vote, the chair announces the result by saying, the ayes have it and the motion is adopted. The resignation is accepted. Or the noes have it and the motion is lost. The resignation is not accepted. Sometimes the chair skips the actual reading or distribution of the resignation and simply puts its acceptance to a vote. So you might be wondering, does an individual have to submit a written resignation to resign? Well, no. Remember that Robert's Rules of Order states, alternatively, it may be submitted during a meeting, either orally or in writing. So a member in a meeting could obtain the floor and say something in the nature of, due to unforeseen scheduling conflicts that have recently arisen at my job, I will be unable to continue serving as chairman of the Bylaws Committee. Therefore, I hereby submit my resignation from the Bylaws Committee. Now, as far as oral resignations go, that one was pretty darn good. Unfortunately, there's another common variety of oral resignation. That's when a member, let's say the treasurer, loses composure in a meeting, says a few choice words, then says, I resign, adding a few more choice words before storming out of the meeting. This always leaves the members wondering whether they still have a treasurer or not. This is why I prefer written resignations, and why I often advise people that resignations should be handled very carefully and as clearly as possible. Why? Because I've seen many cases of the boomerang resignation, where in the heat of the moment the person throws it out there. I resign, but then later tries to pull it back. Me? No, I didn't resign. Sometimes the person will act as though it never happened. Sometimes they'll say they weren't serious, and sometimes they'll claim they have the right to rescind their own resignation. So do they? Let's take a look. If a person has submitted a resignation, can that person take back the resignation and stay in the position? Yes, the person can withdraw the resignation anytime before the vacancy in the position is filled. Yes, but only before the resignation is placed before the Assembly for consideration. Or, no, once a resignation is submitted, it is effective unless it is rejected by the appointing power. What would your answer be? Pause the video if you'd like more time. The correct answer is yes, but only before the resignation is placed before the Assembly for consideration. Remember that a request to be excused from a duty is a motion, and like any other motion, it belongs to the maker up until the point the chair places it before the Assembly for consideration. At that point, it belongs to the Assembly, and only the Assembly can grant permission to withdraw it. But it's also important to keep in mind that a resignation does not become effective until it is accepted. Saying that you're quitting or even submitting a resignation does not remove you from the position, and it does not relieve you of any of the duties of that position. Robert's Rules of Order states, "The duties of a position must not be abandoned until a resignation has been accepted and becomes effective, or at least until there has been a reasonable opportunity for it to be accepted." Notice this last part, or at least until there has been a reasonable opportunity for it to be accepted. This means that the appointing power can't simply ignore the resignation as a means of keeping an individual in a position, but an individual can't just abandon a position without providing a reasonable amount of time for the resignation to be considered. That covers handling resignations. I quit!